data. On the opportunities for client education, I think the goal, we say, is to meet expectations in a cost-effective, customer-friendly, and streamlined manner. The key is to anticipate the customer concerns. I think something people should think about is perhaps leveraging their existing communications so that clients can receive the information in a method or format that they're used to seeing, whether that's in literature, websites, or again, the call centers. Something you should consider in crafting these messages is the timing of the messages, how frequently should the company issue these messages, and the level of detail, perhaps increasing detail over time as you get closer to effective date and when the information is reported to the clients. I put in there avoiding the provision of tax advice, just recognizing brokers obviously recognize that they're in the business of brokerage services or investment advisors and not in the business of providing tax advice. So it's something they should consider when training their staff to deal with customers. Be sensitive to the fact that they're not giving particularized advice to any individual, but that they're merely explaining some of the rules and what clients need to think about. For managing uncertainty, again, I mentioned there's a lot of talk about delaying the transfer statement requirement for a year, and it's something been requested by SIFMA. We understand that the IRS and Treasury are taking that under advisement, but that no decision has been made. But I think the important thing here is that people should plan on full compliance. We've heard some people mention that they're planning on not being compliant come 2011 because they don't think the rules will be in effect, therefore they don't need to go through at breakneck speed today to get ready. And I don't think that's the right planning posture all companies should take. Just because there's uncertainty doesn't mean you have a free pass. And we know from back in the late 90s when the 1441 regs came out, the IRS provided transitional penalty relief. And one of the things they required was best efforts by taxpayers. So that doing nothing, I think, certainly would not be considered best efforts if there is transitional penalty relief. But again, I don't know that that's coming. It's just something to consider that might be coming down the road. And the final thing I'll mention that, again, a client asked the question, if there is transitional penalty relief or something, does that mean that they do not have to put a number on the 1099, that they can get away with not putting information? I don't think that would suffice. I think the IRS would take a dim view of that approach. So that's all I have. I'll turn it over now to Steve.
Hello, I'm Steve Neese at Broadridge, and I'm going to be talking about covered and non-covered securities and trying to go back to basics. I know everybody's been focusing on short sales and corporate actions and wash sales and transfers and everything else, but I think we really have to go back to basics and focus on your security master, your actual data, and see what that brings. In the old days, if we go back in time, and you wanted to identify a stock, it was very simple. What you did is, if it had 9 digits, it was a stock. If it had a letter in the 7th and 8th character, it was a bond. Okay, so that was a very simple, definition for us to live with. However, things have changed. And I think we need to talk about that, and we have to look at that. So rather than looking at the technical tax elements that many of the speakers have been talking to and many of the attorneys have been talking about, I think we just go back to our basics. Now, if we look at what the IRS says about covered securities, again, what they've done is they've just made this very simplistic. They said if it's received, purchased after an applicable date, or if it was transferred in, then it's a covered security. So the IRS is not known to come up with very simplistic definitions, but in this case, that's what they've done. And that's all they've said in reference to this. Now, the IRS has also said, how do you determine whether or not a security is a stock? Of course, in 2011, we're going to have to know, to determine a stock versus a bond or other categories. Basically what they say is any security that an issuer classifies as a stock is treated as a stock. Okay, very simplistic answer. On the other side is that we have a reason to know, if you have a reason to know, for example, if you know that an instrument pays interest, then you have reason to know that that is probably not a stock, okay? It's a bond or a debt instrument. So it's a very simplistic, definition. Now, we have to look at a few things. One thing you have to look at is the firm's security master, because the data that you have is only as good as your security master. And as long as you've identified all the different categories, and you're processing them in the proper way, you'll be in good shape. But on top of that, you have to worry about the security firms that are transferring data to you. For example, what if a firm transfers a master limited partnership to you and they say it's a covered security? Now, what do you do with that? Depending upon your system, are you just going to accept it, say, well, it's a covered security. They said it's a covered security, it must be a covered security. Or are you going to bounce it back to them? We have these problems. So not only do you have to worry about your security master, but now you have to worry about all the other firms' securities masters. Okay, so that's a problem. So therefore, what's necessary here is to ensure that you have all the different various security types, and you've identified all the different categories. Now, if we look at, again, what the IRS has indicated to us within the regulations itself, as far as covered and non-covered securities, 2012, so it wouldn't be covered in 2011, we have regulated investment company, mutual funds, U.S. mutual funds, open and closed end, UITs that are taxed as a regulated investment company, and DRIPs. So that's your 2012, so in theory, those are not included in 2011. In 2013, we have the debt obligations, bonds, notes, and debentures. Very simplistic what they had here. Commodities, contracts tied in with commodities, and derivatives, but don't really explain what a derivative is. You know, if I ask around the room, what's your definition of derivative? Give me examples of derivatives. You folks are going to probably have a lot of problems with identifying them. Options transactions, we don't even have any regulations on options, but okay, you know, it's included 2013, rights and warrants. That's it. So if we look at the regulation, that's all the regulations provide us. Now, now we start looking at the actual security types that you might be interested in. And what I'm providing you is an example of this